Latest research on depression tells us that it is a totalizing kind of experience. It covers the whole consciousness and sense of self, and thus renders a person suffering from it completely helpless, losing totally their hold upon a positive course of action. As humans, we have unique potential and capabilities. Thus, on the positive side of it, we have the capability to understand not only simple but complex situations of life. We can make fine distinctions, we can make firm determination, we can make clear and firm decisions, and finally put them into action. And on the negative side of it, when we tend to lose control, we get into disappointment, further fall into despair, despondence, dejection, and depression, and may lose interest as well as all hold and control upon our actions. Now, the $1,000,000 question is, despite having the uniquely human capabilities to understand, discriminate, determine, decide, and put into action, why does human mind and consciousness get helplessly caught into these dark states of mind and consciousness, sometimes falling into complete helplessness? If we get to the core of the linguistic wisdom that lies behind words, ranging from disappointment to dejection and depression, by tracing their etymology, we can clearly perceive a gradual fall in the dark recesses of consciousness they attempt to describe. Thus, disappointment points to frustration of expectations. Despair points to a darker state, loss of hope. Despondence refers to a further severe condition, giving up, losing heart. Dejection takes one even deeper into the abyss of darkness, making one feel cast down. Finally, depression, which refers to a further depressed state which becomes a serious medical condition. There is a point in this downward fall when one loses interest and power to take positive action. Here, we can apply the wisdom of the Gita to come to terms with this complex phenomenon, because not only the central character of the Gita and the epic, the Mahabharata, of which the Gita is a part, Arjuna, suffers these dark states of mind and consciousness. The Gita explicitly terms its first chapter the yoga of dejection. The linguistic wisdom behind the words we use, as we have just attempted to explore, points to an experience that affects our whole sense of self. The Bhagavad Gita describes two kinds of selves. One is the lower self or the egoic self, and the other is the higher self. The lowering of consciousness, as one experiences from disappointment to depression, is clearly a phenomenon happening at the plane of the lower self. The Bhagavad Gita clearly describes that the lower self, left to itself and untransformed, behaves like an enemy with oneself. At the beginning of his book, The Power of Now, Eckhart Tolle describes his personal experience of suffering from severe depression with suicidal thoughts. He describes how he used to wake up during nights telling himself, "I can't live with myself anymore, I can't live with myself anymore," when one day he clearly and intensely realizes the self with which he cannot live is different from his true sense of being. I cannot live with myself anymore implies there is an I or a self which is separate and different from the depressed and miserable self which it can see and disidentify with. So one can see the depressed self, stay aware of it, and can disidentify with it. If we look at this depressed and miserable self with the lens of the Gita, it's in fact one's lower self which one can win over and transform in the light of the higher self.